Welcome. This is the second video of a three-part documentary about Hellway, Atari 2600 Homebrew. The first video was a pretty amateur one, which I basically just react on the fly while watching the footage I recorded before. And it turns out the audio is pretty bad, and sometimes also it's really hard to react on real time, so sometimes a little bit confusing. I would even say chaotic. So this video tries to be a little bit more calm and a little bit more of a manual, like a manual to the game, a instructional video. So let's get started, shall we? So the first thing you can do with the game while you are in the title screen is to change the border of the screen to please you aesthetically. So this is the simplest one. This is the one I usually play because it's the one that gives me the least amount of distractions. But there are other effects that you can achieve. So if you press left, this is attack. Basically, this shows the engine rotation and the RPMs, and right here you're playing on the vertical bar. Here it goes to the outer edges of the screen. Okay. Second, parallax effect. This is just like simulating like a road where the things are. So this is to the right, and just simulating distance, right? So the part of the road that's close to the screen is going the natural speed, and the other parts they go slower, like the real life. This is like a parallax effect. The third effect you can get is like a vertical parallax effect. So the bottom lines, they are slower and they get faster once they are closer to your car. So like you're racing on an elevated plane and seeing this thing from above. Again, this is just aesthetics. Second thing you can do is to use the difficult switches on your Atari, and this changes where you start the game. So once you change the difficult switches, you just reset the game, and this will read the new configuration, changing where you start. And you will get in depth how this affects the other game modes. But they always change where you start, but just have different effects on different game modes. Okay, so every game mode will read the difficult switch before you start, and we have 4 main things that can change on each game mode. So all the possible combinations of game modes are 16 combinations plus the 4 difficult switches. So you actually have 4 game modes for your enjoyment. The first game mode is game mode 0. That's the one you're seeing here. Game mode 0 is the one that I showed in the video before. It basically keeps cycling through the difficulties and goes back to the first one or after you are in the highest difficult. But again, difficult is a very bad term because it's not about getting hard, it's just about getting more traffic. Again, when you have more traffic, the checkpoints give you more time, so it's about like changing the gameplay mechanics, but not changing the difficulty. So yeah, please watch the first video. I'm pretty clear about it. Yeah, so this is game mode 0. This is basically the mode that I expect people to play probably the most. And about game mode 0 is that the cars are completely predictable. So if you see, every time I start the game, I see the same cars in the road. And I'll start again, you're gonna see the same pattern. Again. So this can be used on your advantage. So you can memorize. But Of course, this is all about when the car meets. So even if I'm producing the same cars for each track, where each track meets, because each track has each individual speed, this is what's really important. So for the first few screens, you might get really consistent experiences, but the speed you travel really builds up, and in the end, you're probably gonna meet completely different cars, even though for each individual track, you're passing the same cars, and if you stop, the same cars pass through you again. So the second game mode I'm gonna show, and by the way, you can see the game modes on the top left of your screen. So this is game mode 0. I'm gonna turn to game mode 1. And what game mode 1 does is it locks the traffic level. So if I just play through this level and get to the checkpoint, what's going to happen is this is gonna repeat again. So if you like to play with less cars, or if you like to play with more cars, be my guest, this is not cycled through to the traffic level. So this will keep constant on this green zone. And now the difficulty switches are really more important, because then if I change this here, for example, you can, by the difficulty switches, you can choose where you want to play. While in the first mode, even though you can choose where you start, this will keep cycling, right? So the third mode, remember what I explained about this being the deterministic algorithm? Yeah, this actually randomize the start position of the road. So you can get a completely different experience every time you start the game, and also this might equalize with friends that have less experience with the game. So we have a very unpredictable experience, and all the tracks, they are going to random positions, completely randomizing their initial parameters. Okay, so mode 3 is the same thing. So we're gonna see that the modes kind of repeat again, because this is like a 4-bit number, and each bit is a flag. So mode 3 is just random cars, but the difficulty will be locked. So every checkpoint you're gonna still see the same track like mode 1. Okay, so keeping that in mind, mode 4 to 7, they're gonna repeat everything that you had from mode 0 to 3, but they will increase the traffic level. Sorry, the the difference of speed that you have between each track, and this changed the gameplay a lot. I'm gonna show you guys a little bit. So you can see that the track on the right, I have a lot of speeds from the track of to the right, and the speeds between each track, they really change. There is a greater delta between the tracks. This drastically changed the gameplay, because when you change tracks, you have to gain much more speed to make this change. Also, like I said in the first video, this game is all about the windows of opportunity that you have to overtake cars. So if you're playing with a bigger difference on the tracks, these windows of opportunities, they will come to you faster. So the openings that you have to pass by, if you don't have any, they will form faster, but they also will be over sooner. So yeah, so actually I think this make the game a little bit harder. So yes, use it's all about personal preference, but this drastically changed the gameplay. I cannot stress this enough. So yes, so let's go this out and go repeat again. So a lot of difference with the track locked. So yeah, a lot of difference with the tracks randomized, a lot of difference with the tracks randomized, and you are locked in the same traffic level. So again, you see a pattern emerging, right? So the last variable that you can change is this is from games 8 to 15, so 8 to F is hexadecimal. You nerds. So this basically randomizes the difficulty. So this is the most wild game modes we have. So basically every time you start the game, you get a random difficulty, and every time you pass through a checkpoint, you get a random difficulty. So what does this mean? I will reset the game again. Every time I start, I don't know the traffic intensity I'm going to get. So yeah, so basically that's it. And every time I pass through a checkpoint, this traffic intensity is going to change. And this traffic intensity might vary much more than it varies on the traditional game. So you can get actually much more traffic than the hardest difficult, or you can get a completely free of traffic thing on the two extremes. So we have like six four numbers that I can generate. In the first one we have no traffic, and the last one we have much more traffic than the hardest difficulty. It's really hard, and it's completely random. So what the other options mean? So you can all the options can play on top of this one. Again, so doing all the combinations until F. But there is some special thing about it, and this is a little bit counterintuitive. So if you reset the game and you go to a mode where you lock, so where you don't change levels, basically what you are selecting is the amount of time you get from each checkpoint. Remember that I said the higher traffic level, but actually, okay, I'll give it an example. So this gives you 35 seconds every time you pass a checkpoint, right? If you want to play a randomized game, and you don't want your time to vary every time you pass a checkpoint, because if you keep cycling to the traffic levels, this will be even more wide, because you might get a lot of traffic and the checkpoints that will give only you 30 seconds, and then you can get almost no traffic and the checkpoint that will give you 45 seconds, right? If you lock on one of the levels, you're basically choosing your difficulty. So if you go like this, and reset the game, this is actually easier, because every time you cross a checkpoint, you're gonna give you 45 seconds, but this doesn't influence the traffic level that I'm choosing randomly. So just influence the time you get for each checkpoint. And lastly, I want to show, so this is now completely crazy. Now in this mode, I'm actually randomizing the traffic level and also randomizing the start of the track, because probably some of the more attentive guys already noticed that changing the traffic level and the roads in the same position. It's like, okay, I have car 1, but now that I have more traffic, I have car 1 plus car 2. The car 1 that was in a lower traffic level is not going to go away, right? It's just you have more cars, but the cars that you had on a lower traffic level, they're still going to be there. But now this is randomizing everything. This is randomizing the start of the tracks and the traffic level. You can get anything. And yeah, so this is basically it. I forgot one last switch, maybe it's the most important of all, that at any time in the game, you can use the black and white switch to get a high contrast version of the game, like a black mode, right? That you see in most developed environments these days, most operational systems. Yeah, I made this because I have a daltonic friend, and first of all, maybe this will help. I hope this help, but also, yeah, a lot of people prefer to have high contrast modes. So it's up to you. Particularly, I think it gets a little bit tiring in the eye depending on the monitor you're using, but it's a matter of personal preference. And again, this you don't have to reset the game. At any moment, you can change the color scheme to a high contrast one or to just the default one. Okay, so I want to say thank you guys for watching, and pretty soon I'll make a third video about the delights, about the pleasures of developing for Atari, about the graphical choices, statistical choices, and actually many of these choices come from the constraint of the hardware itself. So if you are a big nerd like me, you're probably gonna like it, or you probably already know much more than I know about Atari. So, but anyway, stay tuned if you like. It'll be a great pleasure to host another session of Hellway. And just for the sake of it, I'm gonna to complete this checkpoint, which it's a very hard one. See the, oh man, I got even harder traffic level. See, this is the craziness of randomness. You can get anything. So, good night or good day, and see you later.